Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a really powerful security blueprint. This is the kind of thing the world's biggest industries use to lock down their most valuable secrets. So let's dive right in. Okay, just imagine for a second. You've designed a totally revolutionary new electric car. Everything. The plans, the battery tech, the software, it's all digital. And it's worth a fortune. So how in the world do you stop a competitor or some hacker from just taking it? That really is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Well, the answer is a playbook, a super detailed, really rigorous set of rules for building basically a digital fortress. And in the auto industry and a bunch of others, that playbook has a name: TISAX. This is the framework that takes the fuzzy idea of security and turns it into a real concrete plan you can actually follow. To really get how it works, we're going to break this whole blueprint down into 4 key parts. We'll kick things off with the secret codes that protect the data itself. Then we'll get into the daily actions that make up your front line of defense. After that, we'll look at how you plan for when things go wrong. And finally, we'll see how you build security in from the very start.
All right, first up, the secret codes. This is all about cryptography, which is really just the art of making information completely unreadable to anyone who isn't supposed to be looking at it. At its heart, cryptography does 2 really important things for us. First, you've got confidentiality, which just means only the right people can read the data. And second, you've got integrity, which proves the data hasn't been messed with. And this is true whether that info is just sitting on a server somewhere or it's flying across the internet. But here's the thing. Those secret codes are totally useless without the keys. And those keys have a life of their own. Think of it just like a key to a physical safe. First, you have to create it carefully. Then, you only give it to people you trust. You've got to change the locks regularly for good measure, and when you're done, you have to securely destroy that old key so it can't fall into the wrong hands. Every single one of these steps is absolutely critical. Now, this blueprint puts a huge focus on protecting data when it's at its most vulnerable, and that's when it's on the move. You know, every time you shoot off an email or access a file remotely, that information is traveling. The framework demands that the entire journey is protected, usually with encryption. And get this, if for some reason you can't use encryption, you better have an equally tough alternative ready to go. There are no exceptions here. So having strong secret codes is a great first layer, but it's not going to be enough on its own. A fortress can still fall if the guards are asleep, right? Security is also about what you're doing every single day. And that brings us to our second part, the daily defense. This is all about operations security, the constant, watchful habits that keep that fortress strong. And this is pretty much the essential checklist. We're talking about the fundamentals. You absolutely need up-to-date malware protection, just like on your laptop at home. You have to be constantly on the hunt for weaknesses and then actually fix them. And you can't just go making changes to live systems whenever you feel like it. No, there has to be a formal, tested approval process. So how do you fix those weaknesses? It's through something called patch management. And honestly, you're already familiar with it. It's exactly like when you update the apps on your phone. You know how those updates often patch up security holes? Well, companies do the exact same thing, just on a massive scale. They're closing those digital windows before an intruder can find one that's open. Another huge part of daily defense is separation. I mean, think about it. You wouldn't test a brand new jet engine on a plane that's full of passengers, right? Of course not. And it's the exact same idea in IT. You have a safe, completely separate environment for building and testing new things, and you never, ever mix it with the live, operational system that the business and its customers are counting on. Okay, so even with the best codes and the most watchful daily defenses, things can still go sideways. A really determined attacker might just find a way in. And that's exactly why the blueprint includes a plan for when trouble inevitably hits. This is part 3, planning for resilience and recovery. A good continuity plan really starts by asking some tough questions, like what are the absolute most critical systems we need to have running just to stay in business? What's our step-by-step plan if we get hit by ransomware? How are we going to talk to each other if the whole network goes down? And probably most importantly, a plan that just sits on paper is useless. You have to test it, you have to practice it, and you have to make sure it actually works when you're under pressure. Now, any good recovery plan is built around 2 key business decisions, and they've got these little acronyms, RTO and RPO. The Recovery Time Objective, or RTO, basically asks how fast do we need to get back online, period. And the Recovery Point Objective, RPO, asks how much data can we realistically afford to lose forever. The answers to those questions, whether we're talking minutes and megabytes or days and terabytes, will drive the entire recovery strategy. And of course, recovery is all about your backups. But here's the modern nightmare scenario. What if a hacker gets in and encrypts your backups too? Game over, right? That's why the blueprint demands that your backups are isolated and protected. This means using offline copies that aren't even connected to the network, or what they call immutable copies that simply can't be changed. It's like having a final, untouchable safety net.
This brings us to our last section, building secure foundations. This is all about shifting your mindset. You go from a reactive mode, defending and recovering, to a truly proactive one. It's about baking security into a system from the very first line of code you write. They call this security by design. It just means that security isn't some feature you tack on at the very end. No, it's part of the very first conversation. You figure out what security you need right up front, you configure things securely from day one, you test for flaws before you launch, and, this is a big one, you don't use real customer data in your test environments. And this really is the core philosophy right here. It's the idea that security has to be an integral part of the entire life cycle of a system, from that first little spark of an idea all the way to the day it's finally shut down for good. It's never just a single step. It's a constant thought that's woven into the very fabric of everything you build.
So, as we've seen, this whole blueprint shows us that real security isn't something you can just buy off a shelf. It's not a product. It's a continuous, living process. It's about having the right codes, the right daily habits, the right emergency plans, and the right foundation built from the ground up. Which kind of leaves us with one last thought. Companies with billion-dollar secrets use a detailed blueprint just like this to protect them. But what about the companies that hold your personal information, your emails, your photos, your financial data? Do you know what blueprint is protecting your data?